Hello everyone, this is Theodore, and in this episode I'll explain how trading with the Caravans works. Caravans can be essential to the functioning of a fort, either because they can provide you with resources missing from your map, or supplement your economy with extra items. If you started off on a particularly resource-poor site, Caravans can be an absolute lifeline. Caravans show up every so often, usually once per season, though it depends on the civilizations that exist in the area around your site and whether or not you are at war with those civilizations. In autumn, the Dwarven caravan will always arrive, no matter where you decide to settle. Even if you settled on an island volcano or in the middle of the ocean, you'll still get the Dwarven caravan every year. If elves or humans exist near you, they will send a caravan in spring and summer respectively. If you somehow generated a world where goblins exist near your site and are not at war with you, they will send a caravan during the winter. Caravans can carry all sorts of goods. For instance, if you settled on a map with no iron, you can trade either directly for iron or steel bars, or you can trade for all of the caravan's iron items and melt them down into bars. If your map is a desert or tundra and you're struggling to get food or wood, you can trade it off the caravan. You can even get animals from the caravan that wouldn't ordinarily live in your site, and if you're lucky enough to get a breeding pair, you can potentially get an amazing source of meat or leather or even war animals. Ergo, it is always a good idea to keep the merchants happy lest they decide to skip your fort in their future travels. In order to trade, you have to wait for the announcement to appear that the caravan has arrived on your site. Remember that a trade depot must be built and accessible. You can check if it's accessible by pressing Shift plus D. If your trade depot is accessible, it should be indicated with all blue capital Ds. To be accessible, your trade depot has to have a clear path to its center 3 squares on any side. If you have a heavily forested map, you might have to clear trees to the edge of the map, as the caravan itself is 3 squares broad, and if it can't find a path that allows it to pass through that is 3 squares broad all the way to your trade depot, it won't be able to reach your fort. Building a road can be a way to make a permanent route for the caravan to travel toward your fort, so you don't have to keep clearing trees. Note that a smaller caravan might only be the size of a standard dwarf, and are thus able to slip through a 1 square sized gap. Also note that you should not have cage traps, stonefall traps, or other forms of automated traps in the way of a caravan to your trade depot, as they will trigger any traps they step on. Once the caravan gets to your trade depot, they will unpack their goods. This will take only a few days, and in the meantime you have to do the following. First, hover over the trade depot with Q and then hit G. This will let you move your goods from your stockpiles to the depot for trading. Note that while you can trade almost anything, the caravan has a weight limit, and very heavy items like furniture or boulders can cause the caravan to hit that limit really fast and make them refuse to trade. I like to select all my bins that have crafts in them, as I have standing orders in my fort to create crafts out of bone, shells, horn, ivory, and to make totems. But you can also trade away junk you don't need anymore, like discarded clothing or old furniture. Once you've selected all the stuff you want to trade away, your dwarves will begin hauling all of it to the trade depot as soon as you unpause. However, while hovering over the trade depot with Q, you also have to summon a broker. You do this by pressing R. This will cause the dwarf with the broker role in your fort to go to the trade depot and essentially act as the representative of your fort. The broker will appraise your goods and the caravan's goods and will haggle for a better deal. To assign your broker, just press N, then go to the broker role and assign a dwarf. The dwarf topping the list usually has the most relevant skills for the job, but starting out, you may have a rookie broker who won't even be able to show you the value of your goods. Having a skilled broker can be a huge boon to your fort, but unfortunately the broker has a tendency to be something of a socializer and tends to love throwing parties in your tavern or worshipping at your temples. If this is the case and the caravan is about to run out of patience and leave, which you'll get a notification about, You can hover over the trade depot and press B to allow any free dwarf to step in and act as broker, which probably means you won't get as good a deal, but you'll still be able to trade that season. In our example on screen, we'll trade some goods to the elves for the food that they are carrying. We have a bunch of shell and bone crafts, so we'll mark those for trade. Since we're trading with the elves, we will avoid any items with wood in them, including items decorated with wood. The elves have the messed up idea that trees are people, and therefore if you try to trade anything made out of wood with them, they will get offended and leave. The elves aren't carrying much, but our goal right now is to make the elves happy and give our broker some experience, so we'll be able to see the value of our goods in the future. So we'll just trade away all of our crafts in exchange for their paltry food supplies. Once we have everything selected on both sides of the trade, we'll hit T to make the trade. As you can see, the elves are very happy about the trade, as we have probably offered them way more for their goods than they were worth, but that's fine. Now our broker has some experience, we can trade much more favorably next time, and with the elves happy, they are sure to send a larger shipment next season. In our next example, we're dealing with a larger caravan, and we can see the values of both sides of goods. The important numbers to watch here are the value the trader is giving you and the profit they are making in the bottom left hand of the screen. The goal is to make the merchant at a bare minimum pleased with the trade, so they're encouraged to come back next year with a bigger caravan. If you're playing version 50 plus of Dwarf Fortress, you can tell if the caravan will accept the offer by the color of the trader profit number. If this is green, they will always accept the trade. If it's yellow, they might accept it, and if it's red, they will never accept it. If you're using an earlier version of Dwarf Fortress, like me, you'll have to guesstimate how much value they'll accept, based on the goods you're trading and the skills of your broker. A merchant might provide a counter offer if they won't take your trade, which you can then accept, deny, or alter as you see fit. I usually trade for all the crafting materials, so cloth, bars, blocks, leather and so on, that the caravan has, as well as any foodstuffs that can be brewed to keep the flow of liquor going. Clothing is also an excellent thing to trade for, as your fort will have an endless hunger for fresh clothes. Once the trade is done, you can guesstimate how well you did by the merchant's response. If they're ecstatic, they're very happy with you, but you probably gave them more than they would have accepted. If they're pleased, that's the ideal situation, as you have gotten good value for your items, but still left the merchant happy. If somehow you've insulted the merchant, they'll probably send a smaller caravan next year, or perhaps none at all. Once the trading is done, select your trade depot with Q, and go into the Move Goods menu with G again. You can now unselect all the bins and items that you've selected to trade, so your dwarves will be able to move them back to your stockpiles. I also recommend that while you're doing this, to take this opportunity to go through your newly acquired metal items and mark any of the ones you aim to melt down by pressing V while on that item and then pressing M to mark it for smelting. Now you know how to trade. However, before closing out this video, I wanted to go over a few tips and tricks when it comes to trading that will not only help you make the best possible profit, but will also prevent you accidentally ruffling any feathers. You can choose to offer items to the merchant with O. This mostly just serves to improve the merchant's mood before trading with them, and maybe improves diplomatic relations, though I can't tell you how much, and you don't get any other rewards for offering them items. In addition, if you offer at least 7,500 value to the Dwarven Caravan and have enough value in your fort, you can use that to make your fort the capital of your faction, though that is too complicated of a thing for me to go in during this video. If you're very desperate, you can also seize goods from the caravan. You simply select them as you would normally when trading, and then press S when you're ready to seize the goods. This will essentially take the goods by force, which the merchant will not resist, though it will cause them to leave immediately without the seized goods. While this will give you free stuff, bear in mind that this will insult the merchants of that particular faction, which at a bare minimum means the next caravan they send will be smaller and will harm diplomatic relations with that faction. While they won't immediately send an army to wipe out your fort, it does contribute towards that end. Considering how easy trading is, you should always avoid doing this. You usually want to trade more in value to the caravan than you are receiving. This helps build good relations with that faction and ensures they'll bring more goods next time. Never ever offer the elves any items that is either made of wood or has wood incorporated in it somehow, such as by decoration. Elves, for instance, will never accept lye, for that's made exclusively of wood, but you could trade them something like an iron spear, even if you use charcoal to melt down the ore to make the spear, since the elves will just assume that you used regular coal rather than charcoal to do so. If you offer the elves anything made of wood, during trading they'll be extremely insulted and may actually send warriors next time to punish you for your transgressions against the trees. Worst case scenario, they may straight up declare war on your civilization, in which case you might not be able to trade again with the elves for the entire lifetime of your fort. You should not trade for clothes or armor from the humans unless you intend to melt them down into bars. Human clothing is too big for a dwarf, while goblin or elven clothing is not. Certain weapons that the humans craft, like halberds or two-handed swords, can be significantly more dangerous than their standard dwarven equivalents, but cannot be wielded by all dwarves and will lose out to dwarven weapons of superior quality. If you somehow end up getting a goblin caravan, you should also not purchase any items that are made out of materials taken from a sapient creature, such as troll fur or gremlin leather, as dwarves refuse to use any items with those materials in them. If you're looking to create items to trade with the caravan, making hundreds of crafts out of replenishable excess materials like animal bones, teeth, shells, or similar is a great way to generate easy value. Plus, certain crafts are wearable items that can make dwarves happy, like scepters or earrings, and making crafts is a very easy way to keep your dwarves occupied and prevent them from getting bored. You can trade artifacts, as these can be stupendously valuable, to the point of in some cases buying out entire caravans by themselves. However, as soon as the merchants leave with the artifact, the creator of the artifact will get some seriously bad thoughts from their masterpiece being quote-unquote lost, and it's unlikely you'll ever be able to get it back. Plus, artifacts make for excellent decorative pieces. Regular masterpiece quality items do not suffer from this drawback. Caravans can get scared away from your fort by a variety of stuff. This happens after they arrive at your site and will cause the caravan to turn around and exit off the edge of the map, so you won't get a chance to trade. If a member of the caravan steps on a trap that you've set up, especially a cage trap or a deadly weapon trap, the caravan tends to turn around right away. Similarly, attacks by vicious wildlife such as bears, wolverines, or more exotic creatures may also scare off the caravan. Corpses laying around their path to your fort may also traumatize them to the point of the caravan deciding to turn around, though this is pretty rare and probably only happens with the corpses of sapient creatures, just as how dwarves are only stressed by seeing the corpses of sapient creatures. The merchants will leave near the end of the season they arrived. This is again something to be careful about, because if the merchants attempt to leave, but they can't because they are now blocked in, for instance because you raised the drawbridge to your fort or because you built something in their way, they will slowly go insane. You can get all the goods they are carrying at that point, but they will attack your dwarves, and any goods that were offered or traded to the caravan probably won't count towards building better relations with that faction anymore. Alternatively, if the merchants try to leave but die before getting off your map, which can happen because a sieging force or a monster of some kind arrived, this also hurts relations with that faction, even if it wasn't your fault. This also applies if they get killed trying to reach your trade depot. If something happens while the traders are trading at your fort, like a siege or a mega beast attack, you're best off raising the drawbridge, then deciding if you want to attempt to fight off the invaders to allow your guests to safely leave, or if it's better to wait out whatever is outside your walls, despite the fact that this may force you to kill the traders at your fort. The most important skills for a broker are Appraiser and Negotiator. Any dwarf with pre-existing values in these skills makes for a better broker, but brokers will naturally gain XP in these skills with every trade. If you're having trouble trading a great deal of items with the merchant, either from your fort to the merchant or vice versa, it might be prudent to activate Dwarf Fortress Hack for the purpose of that trade only and then deactivate it afterwards, as Dwarf Fortress Hack has a special utility that allows you to hold shift and select many items in rapid succession by just scrolling down your list. Import Agreements. Whenever the Dwarven Caravan arrives, as long as you are not the capital of your faction, you will also see a Dwarven Diplomat arrive at your fort. This diplomat will attempt to have a meeting with your fort's leader, which will be the highest ranking noble at your fort, during which you will both receive news about the outside world and you'll get to make an import agreement. In the menu for the import agreement, you can give different items a new priority, starting from neutral. The higher you set this priority, the more of this item you will receive on the next Dwarven Caravan, but the higher the price for these items will be. As such, you get to demand a bunch of resources that you really want, in return for having to trade more stuff for those resources. It's not necessary to engage in import agreements if you don't want to, you'll just get a normal spread of items in the caravan every year. Though I think the caravan tends to bring more of any item it knows there aren't many of in your stockpiles. After you either make an import agreement or choose not to, the diplomat will also show you what goods are in demand for export. These items will be worth more trade value the next time the Dwarven Caravan arrives, though I don't think these modifiers apply for non-Dwarven caravans. That's all on how to deal with caravans. Thank you all for watching, and see you all in my next video.